Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Tom, jumping straight in here with Facebook, Meta, Instagram's competitor to Twitter called Threads briefly showed up on the Google Play Store. Now, if you didn't know, our boy Zuck has talked about it a couple times here, but they have been working on a platform that focuses more on text other than pictures and posting and friends and all that, which is what Twitter pretty much is, or Reddit was before Reddit started having its problems. But Facebook wants to launch a competitor to that. So a developer who routinely digs into app code exposed unreleased features tweeted earlier this morning that Meta's Twitter clone, Thread, had been released into the Google Play Store. It appears, though, that was a mistake. They're not ready to launch that yet. I'm guessing we might see it this fall if it was already on the Play Store to this extent and able for other people to find. But he included some screenshots that showed us some of the UI elements and stuff like that, which we have here. And if there's any takeaway from these screenshots, it is that it pretty much looks, especially with these verified marks, just like old Twitter. So if you were somebody that for some reason has decided to be done with Twitter because of Elon, you might have your option here. So it quite literally just looks like Twitter, except for you can link your Meta account basically and keep your username that you had on Instagram or Facebook and be able to connect through conversation on Twitter. Sorry, on Threads, my bad, because it's no longer called what I was just calling it. Now, some of the interesting things here is that the project has been in development since January, named Project 92. The Verge confirmed the name and got a first real look at the app based on an internal company-wide meeting at Meta. The chief product officer, while previewing Threads, said, "We've heard from creators and public figures who are interested in having a platform that is sanely run as opposed to Twitter," which at the end of the day, Twitter is pretty sanely run. The only advantage that Meta would have here is they have Instagram and Facebook already, where they've run ads and dealt with all of that stuff for a long time. So not much is changing that way for them. But the leak served as the catalyst to the cage match we may or may not see between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. And shockingly, Elon's walrus strategy looks like it may actually be worth doing. But it is interesting seeing that forever we've seen kind of Meta / Facebook, their strategy for the last bunch of years, they haven't really released any new products. They've just bought competitors like Instagram or WhatsApp or Oculus, and that's how they've entered areas. But for Threads, there doesn't really seem to be the same buy a company to get us there. It is a strictly we're building it internally. That said, I don't know. It can't, in reality, if you have the makeup of like Facebook, for instance, if all you're really trying to do is focus on the text over images, I don't know if the platform's that different, you know? I don't know how they're going to change it enough to be like, why would I download Threads over Facebook? I mean, even between Facebook and Instagram now, Instagram's like more of a video platform, I guess. I don't see as many videos on Facebook, but then again, Facebook is like a streaming competitor to Twitch and all that to an extent, at least the gaming side of it. So I don't know. It's interesting watching Meta go through all these different platforms that don't seem that different, but at the end of the day, apparently are. Now, in terms of differences, if you drive in the UK, you may drive on the right side instead of the left side. But Tesla has come up with a fix for that since they are refusing to ship those kind of vehicles. So Tesla started to deliver the new Model S and X models in the UK with a grabbing stick after they are forcing buyers to get left-hand drive models. Now, I have seen these before, and I actually really want one because these are really fun if you need to grab something high up in the air, or if you need to grab something on the ground, or you're just picking up trash on the side of the road in your yellow vest. This is exactly that. Now, this is Tesla over-engineering things, fixing problems to the maximum, which is absolutely wild. So the automaker had decided to stop selling Model S and X vehicles altogether in some smaller left-hand drive markets, like Australia, like Singapore, like Thailand. I said them backwards the first time. And they started offering just right-handed drive vehicles. in bigger markets like the UK. This has upset many buyers. Crazy that would upset people. And they started canceling their orders. So some of these have been waiting years since the Model S and X refresh was announced to get new vehicles. They'd been waiting for the latest Plaid to get the top performance, blah, 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 blah. Now, Tesla's fix to this is interesting. So the reacher is a grabbing stick meant for drivers to be able to reach the passenger window, presumably to grab things like receipts, drive-through items. So basically, because you're sitting on the wrong side of the car for everything you would do on the driver's side of your car in that country, this is meant for you to be able to reach across and say your food's getting delivered to you because you just went through the drive-through. Not only now do you have to yell across your car to get to like have the drive-through window. Like if you're sitting in your car, I'll sit here. You're sitting on the right side and on backwards. I did it backwards for the camera. If you're sitting on this side of your car, and in America you would grab things to your window, you get your meal, you get your order, and you just take it out, you set it down, you put things in your cup holders, you're happy. Now you're in the UK where people are used to sitting on this other side, and their infrastructure is built for that, right? It's like if you go out to eat and you're going through a drive-through, it's on this side of your car. Well, now, because you're sitting on this side, you have to yell to the person that you're ordering from. And then on top of that, you either have to lean across and reach out to grab something, or you probably have to unbuckle and basically climb across, or you're only going up 2 places with a passenger now. But Tesla thought this through. Here is your grabby stick so that you don't have to do that. So you have an extension for it, and you put that together while you're yelling your order across, you're sticking your thing together, and you get to the window, put your card in the clamp, put the clamp out through the window, release, let them grab it, bada bing, bada boom, and you're back to ordering how you would have with a giant stick. Now, this is pretty wild, where Tesla is basically expecting in these regions that you are going to go out of your way and figure that out. I mean, I love that Elon owns Twitter now, so we get to see this dumb shit on Twitter. But here's somebody trying to use a keypad. Now, could you imagine if you had to actually type on that? This guy just has a fob he's got to hold there. But if you had to type to get access to that, I mean, you'd have to get out of your car. I mean, it is absolutely stupid. And holy crap, would that throw you off driving around? Like, you don't realize, like, you're sitting on the side of your car, you make, like, a right-hand turn. Well, you're on that. You can see all the oncoming traffic as you make that right-hand turn. If you're on the opposite side now and you're trying to make that right-hand turn, how much more awkward is it to see the oncoming traffic? I mean, there's a little bit of safety hazards to this, as stupid as it is. And like if the entire car industry got on top of this, like you're expecting all the banks to basically flip their buildings around. You're expecting, fast food places. Fast food places might be a little bit easier to put windows on the other side and like it might be kind of messed up, but doable. Like an entire bank flip around or something like that. I mean, this is a wild thing to expect your customers. I love that they call it the reacher too. I mean, I get on the car manufacturing end that it sucks to do this, but at the same time, like, how much worse is the experience for your customers now? And that's just kind of the Tesla way. And, it's the 4th of July as of recording this, and this just shows you that America truly is better. Now, Volvo's heavy-duty electric truck can run 12 hours a day with 1 charging break and can haul 74 tons. Now, before you get excited and you're like, the Tesla Semi has been sucking chunks, there could be a little bit to this. So, leading truck manufacturer Volvo Trucks is pioneering a path for heavy-duty transporting and the hauling industry to get them to go all electric. The company has delivered an electric vehicle truck that can handle 74 tons. Now, there is some questionable to this, how much that is the truck weighing. So basically only charge once, though. That's kind of the bigger deal here if you only charge once a day. That said, like, it could be close to the same amount of mileage as a Tesla truck at that point. But this week, Volvo has released another milestone by providing 3 heavy vehicle electric Volvo FH trucks to Matson Akari in Sweden. I probably said that wrong. But Volvo has been testing one of its trucks for the past few weeks in container traffic in what's called a high-capacity transport test. HTC allows for a larger load to be transported per vehicle. So basically, the vehicle can practice hauling more than it would instead of like what it would legally be allowed to do on the streets of the world. So the electric truck can handle 74 tons of weight with two 32-meter long trailers. So really big trailers. That's your standard semi-trailer, I guess, basically for Americans. But the electric truck is charged with green electricity from two fast 180 kilowatt chargers installed in the company's depot in Arendelle. Looking ahead, the truck will also run from city to city, a 43-mile commute. Now, the interesting thing here is Volvo, out of all the companies to be challenging Tesla in this field, is the first one to do it, which is great. Now, since introducing its first in 2019, Volvo has sold nearly 5,000 electric trucks in 40 countries, and the company aims to be pushing its industry forward as it targets 50% of total truck sales. Now, this brings up a bunch of questions. We talked about the other day how the Tesla semi-truck has been not quite up to standard of what Tesla showed off being capable of doing. Now, to be fair to Tesla, there's a wide range of factors that could be affecting this. We don't know if, they're charging the truck to full every day, if they're setting it to the 80% cap, how they're loading it. Depending on how you load a truck, that can significantly affect and assist your load. There's a lot of things that play into it that change your range. Now, Volvo here is doing something pretty impressive, being able to do all this. And that said, most of this is in metric, and there's not that much detail on really what it's capable of here. Once a day, 12 hours, depending on how far it's driving, how long it sits idle places. There's a lot of factors. If it's only sitting in a truck yard like this, that's not as cool. Also, if you're in an actual depot lot, you can be over the weight limit probably. I don't know for sure because this is in Sweden, but typically you could be hauling more than legal on the road limit because you're in a private, lot. So the truck could weigh more, the bigger battery could have, so many different factors play into this. But nonetheless, the fact that they are doing it is just cool to see them providing an electric semi-truck like this. And I'd love to see somebody actually have a competitor with Tesla, out in the world being actually made. 5,000 trucks since 2019, to me doesn't sound like that much when you think that, I don't know, a year from now, Tesla will be past that. So cool, great. Let's see some more real world numbers and stuff like that start to happen. Now, when Musk first bought Twitter, there was a lot of talk between him and Tim Cook and Apple, if they were going to stay, if they were going to leave, what they wanted to do. And at the end of the day, Tim Apple and Elon Musk, at least Elon tweeted that, hey, these conversations were productive. It's going well. I like where it's at. And now Apple, of all people, have come wildly in support of Twitter, which Apple doesn't seem to be the kind of company I would expect to see kind of backing Twitter like this. Now, Tucker Carlson, the Fox News guy that started his show on Twitter, has been having insane views. So part of that could be that they see a huge potential here to advertise. And Musk might have convinced them to do some advertising on Twitter. So since Elon bought the Twitter last year, he has been devoted to two things: freedom of speech and expansion. He talked about both the ads that have been gone wrong throughout his tenure as CEO and owner of the platform. Twitter has rolled out a shitload of updates since he took it over. But the big news here is Apple's TV show called Silo has been released. The first episode was released on Twitter for free for all to watch by Apple, which is absolutely wild that they decided to premiere a show like this, not on YouTube, not on some other big platform that could have been equally as helpful, but they chose Twitter alone. Now, Mr. Beast has called the move a smart move, and as somebody who is basically the godfather of YouTube at this point, Fascinating to see that he thinks it's a good move. Now, with that, Twitter has been, if you want to get views, it's actually a pretty great place to do it. And putting it on the platform completely for free is also a pretty big deal, because not only is that Apple taking a loss on their own produced show, but they must believe that that platform is going to get people to go subscribe to Apple TV to be willing to do this. Now, Apple TV, the service behind the smash hit Ted Lasso, remains a smaller service compared to the competitors. It is estimated to have around 25 million subscribers compared to Netflix's 250 million and HBO's approximate 96 million. But this is a stride, and that'll be interesting to see where this goes. Will more companies start doing like floater releases here? I mean, why wouldn't Netflix release a like pilot episode of a show? Throw it on Twitter, see what happens. I mean, this could lead to so many more things, and it's a great starting point. And the fact that Apple's the one leading it here, in my opinion, seeing a company like Apple back the platform shows that there is a lot of belief and trust in the platform. Because Apple pretty much never is a leader unless they fully believe in something. And this could be that. That said, it's not an Apple product really, other than the show is an Apple product. But I don't know. It's interesting to watch Apple be one of the companies to do this. Now, next up here, we have the world's first flying car, the Model A, gets flight certified, and it's 100% electric. So, what the heck is going on with that? So, Draper Associates Fund V invested $3 million in funds to jumpstart the program last October. The Model A is the world's first electric flying car with real street driving and vertical takeoff abilities. This thing looks straight up like the Mercedes car with a little more wild, and I believe these are probably solar panels on the front, just looking at it. So it has a flying range of 200 miles, a flight range of 110, and pre-sales began last October for $300,000. Now that actually doesn't even sound that expensive, to be completely honest, for one of these. I mean, you're basically buying 3 Model S's, but they'd be able to fly. And I mean, they're sure, 200 miles is nowhere near that, but just kind of putting that out there. Now, there is a $150 for regular queue or $1,500 for priority queue. These are deposits to get your ducks in a row, so that you can choose where you want to be in line, basically. Now, they've said they've collected over 440 reservations by the end of, I'm guessing, last year. Doesn't really say, because I wasn't reading enough of the article. But this is officially certified by the FAA, so they must, which means they've test flown it. The FAA thought it was safe enough to actually be flown. Now, this would be wild to see. There's not a ton of info here other than there's this flying car, and this thing looks terrifying. This looks like it opens up, like there's going to be a blade that comes out here or something weird. I don't know what is going on. I don't know how many this thing seats. I don't know what the hell, but the FAA approved it, which is crazy to think about. And 440 people paid for it, which means hopefully it doesn't end up being, you know, kind of like a submarine, if you know what I'm saying. So included, wait a minute. It's a, back up, hang on. So Leaf said it is also developing additional models, including a 4-person sedan, a Model Z slated to debut in 2035 with a starting price of $35K. There is no shot we're hitting that. The company claims it will have over 300 miles of range with a 220-mile flight range. Now, the reason I'm laughing and saying there's no way I'm hitting that is because, like, Ford, VW, Chevy have all come out and basically said, we don't know how Tesla's being profitable at their $40K car price with the range and all of that they're offering now. We're like 10 years out from that, which basically puts us at 2035. So how is a car that's going to basically have less range, but somehow double its flying range, and then somehow it's going to be able to fly and drive? How is that going to be the one that's able to get there first? That doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, good luck to you boys, and hopefully it happens. I mean, you already got approved by the FAA, so I guess what do I know? Now, a truckload of The Galaxy Z Fold 5 and Z Flip 5 renders just leaked. To be honest, I'm kind of expecting another year of not big change from this, other than maybe a little bit to compete with the pixels. So what's really going on here? Now, in case there wasn't enough going on here, we did get a little bit of specs too. I'm guessing none of these are going to be super out there, but you can see what they look like here. Now, these aren't even folded or anything like that, so they don't really tell you much other than they look pretty much like last year's phone. Now, the list isn't quite comprehensive, but I don't know. See, the thing is, none of this is like that out there. Basically, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipsets, newer USB-C and Wi-Fi standards, and specs seem very similar to last year's, so it's crazy. Disappointing, that means both phones are rated for IPX8 resistance, which, not shocking. I'll be more excited to see if the Fold gets flat this year for Samsung, if they robust up the screens a little bit more, and they can do just, I don't know, change it a little bit, make it thinner with better battery life, something like that. Just the average phone upgrades. To be honest, at this point, we're waiting for another breakthrough in folding phones, so a little bit of something would be nice, but that's about all I need to see. Now, Rivian has announced that they may have a R2 compact SUV, wholly reading disabilities, targeted for 2026 launch with a $40,000 starting price. This will basically look like the R1S SUV, but a bit smaller is kind of the takeaway here. But they have announced that they are going to be doing that at some point, which is wild when they kind of already can't keep up with demand and are having problems. But I guess that's what you do when you're a startup company. You just keep announcing things to get more funding to keep moving along. So Rivian is working hard to ramp up its production of the R1T pickup and R1S SUV, along with assembling its EDV vans for Amazon. It built more than 9,000 vehicles in the first quarter of 2023. But while the company's Normal, Illinois plant churns out those vehicles, Rivian is also busy developing its next EV. When they already wildly couldn't keep up with demand last year, and they already are setting goals they may or may not reach this year, kind of wild to be doing that. But the R2 will be more affordable than the R1T and R1S, with price ranging from $40,000 to $60,000, and the R1 has an average selling price of $73,000, so that lives right below that, right where you would expect them to place one. Basically going with the Tesla pricing model. It's kind of what they're going with here. So obviously there will be sacrifices to be made to reach that cost. On a vehicle with a cost target, you have to decide whether you're going to spread your investment or just, stack up on the big things. We'll see what happens with the R2 coming soon for Rivian at least, and at some point that'll be here as well. Rip, Pixel Folds be dying. So a flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Ars Technica wrote this article on their brief experience with the Pixel Fold, which was a wonderful little device until the display died, just with their hopes and dreams. Supposedly, it was very light use, not used very long, and 4 days later, well, no longer. So they have this top plastic layer, which is a screen protector. It doesn't run edge-to-edge. That said, it doesn't even run edge-to-edge on my Galaxy Z Fold 4. I think this is a little bit of Google's never manufactured this device before / beginners off the line. First gen product. What are you going to expect? Google always nails 2 and 3, and then after that, it's kind of prayers and hopes. But with that, they think that was the problem. I don't really think that's what that is. I think it's just, again, first gen product. You're going to have some bugs, some issues with the first ones manufactured. As long as Google deals with it and fixes it right away, could be good. Maybe they'll fix it. Another theory is that they were closing the phone because it actually sits flat, and that is actually a bad thing, not a good thing. And when things sit flat, they tend to smosh things in between the screens, and that is what occurred here, is one of the other guesses. Now, people baby their folding phones. I treat mine differently than I would have treated a standard phone, and I think that's just something you gotta get used to. If you're going to have a folding device right now, they're just not as durable. And Google proving that right here as well. But I don't know. Not super shocking to me, I guess. First gen product, again. Just going to say that over and over. I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure they'll fix it. And I'm sure by round 2, it'll be a great little folding device with hopefully way less bezels and everyone will be happy. Lastly here, a quick little breeze through this article. Everybody who bought a 4090 thought they were great. We're having fun. We're having fires. And we're blaming the connector. And some YouTubers even were blaming the connector. But NVIDIA went out of their way to go, there's no way it was the connector's fault. Even though this connector is taking on way more power than it should be. Those are my choice of words. It was a really dumbed down version of doing it. But nonetheless, the connector has been something of controversy, at least. Now, unfortunately, it took a lot of RTX 4090 casualties to get to a point where the big guy stepped up and realized that the 12 VH PWR connector deserves a revision. So Igor's lab shared a small concept excerpt from a draft engineering change notice forthcoming CEM 5.1 spec that will serve as the basis for the ATX 3.1 connector. The 12V 2x6 connector will replace, what the heck was that? Will replace the 12VH PWR connector. Now, basically, they're admitting that it was the problem without admitting it was the problem because this was a brand new connector. So if you're already having to revision it, was something that wrong? Or is next gen's graphics cards going to need that much more power? Now, with the previous connector, the maximum power was 600 watts, 525 from the connector, and 75 watts from the expansion slot. On the other hand, the new limit will be 675. Basically, the new connector will be able to handle an extra 75 watts, helping burn that fire a little brighter. I mean, who really knows because we haven't seen it yet, but the power connectors are obviously different. However, the PCI SIG has made efforts to help less experienced users differentiate one from the other by using unique identifiers. Crazy. So, moral of the story here is it turns out you might have been right. If your 4090 died because of a small fire that happened to be at your connector, sounds like that could have been the issue. Now, one of the safety things that they're doing for safety reasons is the PCI SIG extended the spacing between the tip of the sense PIDs to the edge to 1.7 millimeters on the new connector. Now that is 1.25 millimeter improvement. As a result, the pin behind the tip is 2 millimeters behind the outer edge, supposedly helping reduce some bad connection points. Will be that. Hopefully I'm explaining all this right because I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But essentially they're hopefully fixing all of the problems here that used to be. And if you're curious, I will try to link this article down below because this is a little more technically over my head. Other than, yeah, they're revisioning that connector already because turns out maybe there were some problems. So you got to do that. And with that, hope you enjoyed this episode. I need to read these technical savvy articles a little more before we get going with them. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode and I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.